Hello, welcome to Locked on Sharks, the premier hockey podcast of your favorite team in the Bay Area. And on today's episode, we continue to dive into the big questions surrounding the San Jose Sharks and if Kaapo Kahkonen can be an answer moving forward or if all is lost. So all that and more on today's episode of Locked on Sharks.
You're Locked on Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm your host, JD Young, contributor at San Jose Hockey Now. I want to thank you for making Locked on Sharks your first listen. Make sure you follow along or subscribe wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch this on YouTube as well, where the episodes, they tend to come out first on YouTube. So if you want to be one of the first, make sure you guys are subscribing on YouTube. And in today's episode, we're going to dig into Kaapo Kahkonen and talk about his year that was, try to figure out if this is a team issue or if this is a Kaapo Kahkonen issue or if it's most likely a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B, and then try to figure out what Kaapo Kahkonen needs to improve on going forward as he enters the last year of his 2-year deal. So as we get started with these, we have to kind of go back, look at what happened this year. So we're going to look at Kaapo Kahkonen's numbers, look at his fancy stats from the Athletic and from Evolving Hockey, and then again, try to move forward and see where's the issues at, and if it's a Kaapo Kahkonen, if it's a San Jose Sharks issue, or what could be the problems. So pulling up his numbers from last season, and they are, if you're watching on YouTube, yikes, ugly numbers here from Kaapo Kahkonen, and he knows how disappointing this season was. So 37 games played this year, 883 save percentage, 385 goals against average. He had 135 goals on expected goals of 110.42. So that is expected goals against, or they project how many an average goalie would give up facing the same circumstances. His goals saved above average was the second worst in the NHL at minus 24.6. So Kaapo Kahkonen gave up 24.6 more expected goals than average. So not good. High danger save percentage, 785. And that is something we are going to, be looking at, digging into more here in a little bit. And as we try to figure out what Kaapo Kahkonen can do to try to bounce back and hopefully be an answer for the Sharks instead of another question, as he looks like he's going to be going into this offseason. Via the Athletic's player card. So Kaapo Kahkonen this year played 37 games as the 45th percentile, which is where, you don't see goalies as much playing, the 55, 60 type of games. I think most of them are kind of in that, 40 to 45 range now. I think that's how most teams are, right? Unless you have an absolute stud. He had 10 wins. Expected 10 wins. He had 9, 18th percentile. Win percentage 26.5, 7th percentile. Shutouts 1, 35th percentile. Goals saved above expected, like I said, 4th percentile. Expected goals saved 3rd percentile. Just brutal numbers here. Expected save percentage was 53 percentile. It just tough numbers from Kaapo Kahkonen. And it doesn't get much prettier when you go to the Evolving Hockey, where you really kind of see it wasn't I don't think it was much of the team. Of course, the team didn't help him out in a lot of situations, as we're going to dive here into in a little bit. But Kaapo Kahkonen's numbers were just brutal, especially at even strength of whenever the Sharks needed him to make a save, he just was not able to do so. Shorthanded, he was okay, much better. The team helped him out a little bit more there, but he posted positive numbers there, and you see that with a lot of goalies. You remember Martin Jones a couple years ago with the Sharks, kind of the same looking numbers, but shorthanded, he did kind of excel in that. And I think it's because goalies they know where things are going to be coming from, right? You kind of know how power plays are kind of structured, and, trying to get that cross-ice passing and then shooting from either from the dots or from the slots. Like, you kind of know how a power play is structured, and it allows goalies to kind of focus in a little bit more with the shorthanded opportunities. But 5-on-5, Kaapo Kahkonen was dreadful this season, and the Sharks were kind of a slightly below average team, as we'll dive here and a little bit on some of their numbers. But Kaapo Kahkonen did not help them out, and I think that is going to be kind of what we're going to be focusing on, is where can Kaapo Kahkonen improve? How much of it was him and how much of it was the Sharks? But before we do that, do want to take a quick break and talk to you about an old friend of ours, of course, Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious snack but don't want all the sugar and calories, then you need to take you need the best tasting protein bar ever. Built Bar, you got to try this. Great thing about them is they're amazingly healthy snacks choices, but you don't want to compromise all the taste. That's where Built comes in. Each bar is covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. They come in amazing flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, cookies and cream. And the great thing is you guys know I like to dig in the analytics. The analytics on Built Bar: 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And if you're like me and you hate waiting for things to come in the mail, you don't have to worry about that anymore. Swing over to Walmart or go to Sam's Club today and grab yourself a box. At Walmart, in the pharmacy section, they have 4-bar boxes of cookies and cream, double chocolate bar, and coconut puff. Or if you have a Sam's Club, you can swing in and grab a 13-bar box of their hit flavors: brownie batter puff and churro puff. Or you don't want to leave your house, or you want to kind of see all the flavors, check out built.com. They have an amazing variety that's always changing. I do actually like to get the variety box because it's got a little bit of everything. So if one day maybe you're feeling cookies and cream, one day you're feeling double chocolate, one day you're feeling churro puff, they've got you covered with that. Or if you need to try to figure out your flavors. So check out Built Bar at built.com, Walmart, or Sam's Club today. All right. So Kaapo Kahkonen, is it Kaapo? Is it the Sharks? A little bit of both. So what I did is I wanted to kind of compare what Kaapo Kahkonen's numbers look like compared to other goalies in the league, right? And kind of see what the average was and what numbers, because if for the Sharks, if they just get like average goaltending, they're going to be such that was their Achilles heel this year was their goaltending, right? Especially in a season where you had Couture have a bounce back year, you had Erik Karlsson putting up 100 points. Timo Meier was on his way to being a 40 goal scorer for the Sharks. Like, you had a lot of things kind of pointing in the right direction for the Sharks to be a successful team this year. But the goaltending was brutal. So I looked at goalies who played at least 500 minutes this year. That's about 10, 11 games. Was most of their kind of games played was in that range. So goalies who played at least that many, try to weed out some of the guys who only got a few starts, etc. So that gave us 79 qualifying goalies with those the 500 minutes played, and Reimer and Kaapo Kahkonen, of course, both qualified for that. James Reimer, or we'll start with the averages. So the average save percentage was a 900, which we've kind of seen goalie save percentages kind of creep down. Again, Kaapo Kahkonen, 883. Goals against average, 304. Kaapo Kahkonen, 385. Goals saved above expected, 0.04, which you expect that to be right around zero. Almost minus 25. Expected goals against, so 96.33. That is the average for most, that puts in your really, really bad teams, puts in your great teams. Average expected goals against for that for most goalies who play around 34, 35 games is 96. Kaapo Kahkonen in his 37 games faced 109 expected goals against, almost 110 goals, right? So he did see an elevated expected goals against. Again, we know the Sharks were bad. And then I kind of wanted to dig into, what is kind of, it boils down. I think for Kaapo Kahkonen, it's his high danger saves. I think that is where Kaapo Kahkonen struggles the most. And that's going to be his area of focus, I think, for him to return to form. Most goalies face 300 or 280. The average goalie faced 287 high danger shots. Kaapo Kahkonen faced 302, so right in the ballpark, right? The average goalie a little bit over, but average goalie faced 235 or made 235 and a half, basically 236 saves. He made 237 for a 0.785 high danger save percentage. The average goalie X we'll call, made 0.82 high danger saves. So I know that number doesn't sound like a lot, but when you give up basically 1.85 high danger goals average per game, and the goalie Y is giving it 1.6, that's where they start to kind of build up. You're giving up almost 2 high danger goals a game. And then I think for Kaapo Kahkonen is also going to be his mid danger shots, and this is the number I think was really, really kind of staggering here for at least what I saw. Most goalies face kind of the same thing. Most goalies face mid-danger shots. Again, those 35, that kind of this in a average season. They face 276.58. Kaapo Kahkonen faced 351. So a lot more. The Sharks gave up a lot of opportunities there. He made 297 saves, gave up 54 mid-danger goals. The average goalie in their 35 games gave up 30. His 0.846 mid-danger save percentage. Most goalies give up less than 1 mid-danger goal per game. He gave up 1.5. So that area right there, your high danger, a little bit below expected. The mid-danger goals, that is where Kaapo Kahkonen got killed last year, giving up nearly half a goal more, or over half a goal more than expected compared to others. He did fine right there with the average goalie in the low danger saves. Then I was looking at, why is this a Sharks thing, or is it a Kaapo Kahkonen thing? And looking at his numbers, I think this year was just a brutal year. So I looked at the 65 games that he played before this season with the Minnesota and then with the Sharks, and his numbers are much better. His high danger save percentage is 0.797, so a little bit of an improvement, not quite league average. So I still think that's an area he's a focus on. And his mid-danger save percentage was 0.898, which is right in line with an average goalie. Even his low danger saves, right in line with an average goalie, 0.965. So, those numbers were okay, but it's that mid-danger and high danger save percentage that he really needs to focus on, especially that mid-danger. I tried to look at if this was the Sharks issue, especially at 5-on-5. And like the Sharks, weirdly enough, created a ton of high danger chances at 5-on-5. They were 4th in the league, and with 937 high danger chances for. Thank you, Eric Carlson and Timo Meyer. High danger chances allowed, like they were okay-ish, like kind of middle of the pack. Like they did better than some playoff teams like the Rangers, the Islanders. Like those are playoff teams, right? They were kind of middle in the pack with that at 100 or 816. So the best team in the league, just in perspective, the Carolina Hurricanes, which we know defensive structure, that how well we know that team is a very, very good defensive team with 680. So it's not like, the Sharks were below average, but it wasn't like they were one of the worst team. Like the Ducks, for example, they were the only team to give up over 1,000 high danger chances at 5-on-5. And look what that got them. Connor Bedard, potentially. If you look at their high danger chances for like percentage wise, the Sharks are like 10th. They had a positive high danger chances, but just whenever they did give up those high danger chances, it led to bad things. They had 97 high danger goals for, gave up 93. That percentage kind of puts them near the bottom. High danger goal is 4. Sorry, they gave up 95. They had 95, gave up 113, 45%, 45.67% high danger goals for. High danger save percentage, second to worst in the league behind only the Seattle Kraken. So, and we know the Kraken kind of like to play a little bit more offense, all that offense type of situation. So the Sharks weren't brutal in those categories, but the goaltending kind of let them down. And, our friend James Reimer, his numbers weren't much better. Just kind of put it in perspective. So his high danger, he played a little bit more games, had 43 games. High danger save percentage was 0.8. So just a little bit below average of the 0.82. Mid danger 0.864, a little bit below the 0.89. And then his low danger was 0.69, 0.969, sorry. Right there in line with the average. So I think going forward, we're going to look at what the Sharks need to do and kind of what Kaapo Kahkonen needs to do going forward to try to kind of improve things, or if this might just be unsalvageable for all parties. But before we do that, I want to take a quick break, talk to you guys about our friends over at eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure to every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to the My Garage and look for the green check to make sure the part will fit or your money back. Because it's just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when all the parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right. If you remember kind of in January, Shang did an interview, Shang Peng of San Jose Hockey Now did an interview with Mike McKenna, former goalie, kind of a goalie guru right now. And, he talked about how in that Kaapo Kahkonen, he feels needs to basically a revamp of his whole, just the way he plays and kind of a rewiring is what he called it. And he said biggest thing for Kaapo Kahkonen is that he plays kind of too wide and too low at times. And that's what's really kind of hurting him and throughout the season, not being able to kind of work on that, right? Because you're playing games and stuff. And we saw Kaapo Kahkonen have good stretches, I think right around the All-Star break, Kaapo Kahkonen played really well. Even a couple games, and then there's another stretch kind of mid to end of the season where Kaapo Kahkonen played really, really well. But he questioned if maybe the Sharks, if they have the right people in place for that, and kind of pointed to Nabokov if he's maybe the best for the potential goalie coach for the Sharks. And that is why I think David Quinn brought in his own guy in Spears here, who's worked with him. And again, we saw some improvements from Kaapo Kahkonen throughout the season and stretches, but just that consistency. And it's hard, especially if you've been playing one way for a while. Hard to kind of rework, on the fly. Like, we see batters, right? Like reworking your swing in mid-season, like you're going to go through slumps and stuff and trying to tweak your swing in mid-season. Usually it takes a little bit for you. So I think that's what Kaapo Kahkonen needs to do this whole offseason, is working on his technicians and being, a more technical goalie. And I think that's a big thing for Kaapo Kahkonen. From the Sharks' perspective, better defensive structure, right? Not giving up so many high danger chances will go a long, long way for whatever goalie. Again, I don't think they weren't brutal in it, but how many times we've talked about this all season, right? When one thing goes wrong, it just goes catastrophically wrong with them, and hopefully not getting as many of those type of situations. Hopefully some remember Sharks' new defensive system with David Quinn, right? Second year of that, we're going to have we're going to have some new faces in there, hopefully with Thrun, who I think you can probably pencil in as a starter going into next year, right? I thought Benning had a really good season. We saw Vlasic have a bounce back season. We'll see with Erik Karlsson what happens with him going forward, but some better defensive structure and just better continuality with the system, with the Shark system and their defensive system, and hopefully just a bounce back in luck, right? This can't all just fall apart like this for the Sharks as it did this season, right? Just everything that went wrong. So for Kaapo Kahkonen, focusing on high danger opportunities, those mid danger saves. Even if it just by sheer luck bounces back to kind of average, we're going to see a much better Kaapo Kahkonen, not kind of give up those goals where he just type of situation. And hopefully some year 2 of the defensive system for the Sharks, I think, can lead to it. Going forward, though, I don't know if Kaapo Kahkonen is the long-term answer of being that guy that we kind of hope for when you traded for him. I think it's a lot to ask for him to kind of be that. And it's maybe just the Sharks are just not good at choosing goalies, right? Martin Jones worked out until you gave him a new contract, but they've really swung and missed on a lot of goalies recently. James Reimer had a great year his first year, and then last year regressed. And again, he's 35 years old. Like, are you going to expect that going forward? Aaron Dell struggled, and a lot of the guys that they kind of hope to kind of come in and maybe be long-term pipeline guys haven't really worked out. Your Milnichuks, your guys like that. And you wonder if the Sharks maybe need a new refresh on how they pick goalies and then how they kind of develop these guys. And we'll see especially how they treat, Etu Makiniemi, Strauss-Mann, Magnus Krona, how these guys, now that they're, going to be entering the pipeline, hopefully Spears is around to kind of groom these guys and work with these guys. And now they're going to be around San Jose all the time, but they still, I think they have to find a veteran this offseason to replace James Reimer. You can't go into the season with Kaapo Kahkonen as your one and then, put out Etu Makiniemi or Magnus Krona and Strauss-Mann, one of those guys who couldn't even win the AHL job right now. You have to go out and find a veteran. If that's another James Reimer type situation where you go out and try to find a guy for a couple of years as you continue to try to build up your pipeline and develop some of these guys and hope one of them pops, or if you need to be aggressive and try to trade for a younger guy who kind of like the Martin Jones situation where you go out and you trade for a guy maybe who's a backup somewheres and is looking to kind of, step out of that shadow and get a full-time job somewheres. I think that might be the way to go. And that's something we're definitely going to explore later on this off season, as what to do with the Devils pick potentially, or what to do with, just potential trade opportunities for the Sharks. And then that's something we're going to, again, spend a whole week. I do like these kind of week-long themes. So we will have a trade week. We'll look at potential guys that you to trade for. And goalie is definitely going to be an option there. So we'll be back tomorrow. So thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen every day. Every day is tomorrow on the show. We're going to be talking about Erik Karlsson and what to expect in the encore. So he puts up 100 points this year. Going to go back and look at players who've kind of had those career seasons, blue line defenders, and then kind of what happens the following year. And then start to talk about if maybe this is the time to try to get out from Karlsson's contract. We strike while the iron's hot, or maybe you continue to ride it out and see if Karlsson has found a new lease on life. So plenty of fun stuff. Make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. You can follow me on Twitter at MyFryHole. If you guys haven't left a review, especially on Apple, please do so. It means a lot to me. Until tomorrow. Bye, friends.